All right, in this video, we're going to be talking about net pay. Now, net pay is the income after the taxes are taken out, okay? And more specifically, we're going to be talking about a pay stub. So let me give you an example. If you've ever worked a job before, whenever you get paid your paycheck, you then get a pay stub or an earnings statement, okay? Now, here's a couple things that I want to just kind of point out, and that is this: gross wages. Now, we've already had several videos about gross wages. This represents how much money you make before taxes are taken out, okay? Before taxes are taken out. All of this information right here represents everything that is taken out of your paycheck. Okay? So this $1,000, it looks really good. So this $1,000 gets really good. But the problem is, all this information gets subtracted from your $1,000. So you got to pay your taxes. Because remember, the two things that are guaranteed in life are death and taxes. And then what happens is your dollar amount, follow the arrow, is now what is called net pay. So your net pay, notice it's significantly smaller than your gross pay. All right, so again, gross pay is how much money you make before taxes. Net pay is how much you make after taxes. Now, today in this video, we are actually going to fill out a very simple earning statement. Okay, so we're going to show you how taxes are taken out, how they're calculated. And so, very simply, let me kind of clean this up a little bit. We are going to, today, after this video, you're going to know how to go from gross taxes minus all of your deductions and then get your net pay. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so just a couple things before we dive into the actual pay stub is insurance. All right, so some of the insurance situations you'll see today, because a deduction can also be how much your health care. So your health care can be taken out of your paycheck. So that would be considered a deduction. Now, the way that some of these questions are worded might be a little tricky, so let's kind of go through a couple. Tammy's medical insurance premium is $15,000. Basically, what this means is this is how much money it costs for her to be insured. Okay. Now, luckily, she only pays 18% of that. Okay. Now you might be asking, well, who pays the rest? Well, that would be the employer, the company. If she receives her paycheck monthly, how much would be deducted from her paycheck? Well, again, let's go through it. So her medical insurance is 15,800. She only has to pay 18% of that. Okay? So what that means is her yearly medical would be 2,844. This is how much money that she would have to pay, but she is paid monthly. So what happens is this yearly insurance bill gets evenly distributed amongst her 12 monthly paychecks. So that means every month she would get $237 taken out of her paycheck for her insurance. Okay? So let's look at the next one. Tammy's Tammy's medical insurance premium is 19,500. She pays 20% of the premium. If she receives her paycheck weekly, how much would be deducted from her paycheck? So just exact same question, just um, different numbers. So 19,500, we're going to multiply that by what she's responsible for, which is 20%. So 19,500 times 0.20, that means she has got to pay $3,900 a year. But it's evenly distributed amongst her paychecks, and she gets 52 of them. So that divided by 52, that means she is dealing with a deduction of $75 a week from her paycheck. Okay? All right. Now let's actually start getting into creating a pay stub. Okay. So this is the format. Now every single pay stub is a little different, but this is the format in which we're going to use. All right. So this is the format. And once we do this one time, you pretty much kind of get the gist of this. And so here we go. So Glenn Graybar is a painter and earns $24,700 a week. All right. Now, this is a weekly pay stub. All right. Keep on jumping ahead. I'm sorry. He is single and claims 3 allowances. Now, what we're doing basically, this is just extra information that we don't need. All right. So we don't care. All right. We don't care about that. All right, so we are creating a weekly pay stub. All right, so what that means is he's going to get $24,700 and he's going to get that evenly distributed amongst 52 weeks. So basically, I'm just going to take this and divide by 52. All right, so 24,700 divided by 52. So let's kind of start filling this out here. So now technically here, you don't necessarily have to write this out. I'm just being now period ending. We're not going to put anything there. We don't care about that. All right. So his gross pay ended up being 475. All right. Now the reason why I got 475 is because I took this right here, 24,700 here, and then I divided it, and that's his gross pay. Now remember, his gross pay is what you get paid before taxes. Okay. All right. So we're going to base everything on this pay stub off of 475. Now let's read. It says the FIT. The FIT means the federal income tax of 12.5%. Okay? So now what I'm going to do, and this might be a little long-winded, but I'm just going to do it right here. So right up underneath, just for organization practices, I'm going to write 12.5% because that's how much that is. All right. Now, Social Security, I didn't put this on here, and throughout the unit, I'm going to keep reminding you, Social Security is 6.2%. Medicare is 1.45%. All right, so those are, okay, so let's keep going. All right, so it says here, oh, here we go. The state tax is 3%, and then the local tax is 1.75. Okay? So, just again, for labeling purposes, state tax is 3%, and then the local tax is 1.75%. All right, so let's see. Okay, so now for this particular question here, it tells us that 1450 will be taken out for medical insurance. So, medical insurance, we're just going to go ahead and write 1450 here. And union dues are 12 bucks a week. So, union dues are $12 a week. All right. All right, so let's kind of work with everything else. So now we got to figure out, okay, what is going in all these blank boxes here. All right. Now, very simply, this is what you're going to do. The percentage represents how much of the gross pay they're going to get. So you're going to take the gross pay and times it by the percentage. Okay, you're going to take the gross pay times it by the percentage to get Social Security. You're going to take the gross pay times it by the percentage here. You're going to take the gross pay times it by here, and then gross pay times right there. Okay, so very simply, you're just taking the gross pay and multiplying it by all the percentages. All right. Now remember, of course, when you multiply by a percentage, you always move the decimal. All right, so $4. I'm sorry, $475. And I'll probably need to do a smaller text. $475 times 12.5% will be 59.38. When I multiply it by 6.2%, it's 29.45. When I multiply it by Medicare, 8.89. When I multiply it by the state tax, I get $14.25. And then lastly, when I multiply it by local, $8.31. Now, y'all might be asking, well, wait a minute. What about this over here? This is blank. Well, you're right. Sometimes that will be a blank. All right. So in this case, in this problem, that last one is not going to be used. So just to make sure we're good, I'm just going to go ahead and write in A because we're not going to use, that's not a deduction here. Okay. So what we did was we had our gross pay. Now we have all of our deductions. Okay. So going back to our pay stub that I showed you at the very beginning, here's our deductions. It's just in a vertical format, to whereas what we just did was in a horizontal format. Okay? So very simply, what you're going to do is you're going to take all of these numbers and you are going to subtract them from 475. So 475 minus 5938, minus 2945, minus 689, so on and so forth. And your answer ends up getting the net pay, which net pay is how much he's getting, how much he's going home with, $330.22. Okay? So again, his gross pay is how much he made beforehand. His net pay is how much he made after the deductions. So again, going back to your pay stub that I just showed you, remember, we started with gross pay, we subtracted all of the deductions, and then we're left with net pay. So remember, in this question, $1,000 is how much he made. Now it whittled down to $709. Same concept here. He started with $475, and now he's at $330. All right, pretty simple. Let's try another one. All right, so Paul works for Smith's Feed and Seed. His annual pay is $31,200, and then he gets paid biweekly. Now, this is where a lot of students screw up. The first thing they do is gross pay. Oh, gross pay is $31,200. That's what they do, because they just see a number and they plug it in to the actual pay stub. Now, remember, guys, this is a pay stub. This is what he gets every single time he gets a paycheck. All right, so that means he's getting biweekly, so that means he's getting paid 26 paychecks. All right, so it's evenly distributed amongst 26 paychecks, so we're going to divide that by 26 because that's what biweekly is. All right, so the gross pay ends up being $1,200, I believe. Let's see, 31,200 divided by 26. Yes, all right, so that's his gross pay. Now, the percentages sometimes change depending on the problem. So in this case, the FIT, the federal income tax, changed to 4%. So federal income tax, sometimes it just changes. You know, I just changed it up a little bit. Now, Social Security will never change. It's always going to be 6.2%. Medicare will never change. It'll be 1.45%. Let's see, states. All right, state tax is 2%. Local tax is 1%. All right. Now, look at medical. All right, so medical, I gave you, this goes back to like the first couple of questions where I'm like, these are some of the insurance situations you'll see today. So here we are. He pays 25% of his annual medical insurance of $6,000 biweekly. All right, so just like we did in these first little questions here, we're going to multiply how much he has to pay, or not, I said that wrong, how much his insurance is times the percentage, how much he has to pay, and then divide it back. All right, so here $6,000 is how much his insurance is, $6,000, but he only has to pay 25% of that, which is $1,500. But again, that's yearly. He's got to pay this yearly, but it gets evenly distributed amongst all of his paychecks. So we're going to divide that by 26, which means every single time he gets a paycheck, $57.69 gets taken out. All right. And then let's go back. Oh, he pays $20 to pay a union. So that's a deduction, $20. And I don't see anything else. All right, so this other is going to be an NA. Sometimes it's an NA, sometimes it's not. Now, from this point on, very simply, we're then going to take the gross pay and multiply it by all of these percentages, okay, just like we did last time. So the FIT, the federal income tax, what he's paying to Washington, is 48 straight dollars. Social Security, $74.40. Medicare is $17.40. State is a clean $24, and local is a clean $12. All right. So we're going to take all of our deductions, everything we wrote down, like so, and we're going to subtract it from 1,200, and we're going to get our net pay. So our net pay ends up being, after it's all said and done, $946.51. All right. So that's pretty much everything that we're going to do today. So hopefully you learned something. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.